In 1865, slavery officially ended in the United States. Chains were broken, laws were rewritten, and a nation claimed to be reborn. But freedom in America has often been conditional. For millions of African Americans, emancipation did not bring equality, it brought a new struggle. The question facing the nation was not whether slavery was over, but whether black people would ever be allowed to live as full citizens. The answer would not come immediately. Instead, it would emerge slowly, deliberately, and through law. That system would come to be known as Jim Crow. The term Jim Crow did not begin in a courtroom. It began on a stage. In the early 19th century, white performers dressed in blackface, mocking African Americans for entertainment. One character, clumsy, ignorant, and inferior, was called Jim Crow. What began as parody became stereotype. What became stereotype became ideology. And eventually that ideology would shape American law. Jim Crow was not simply a name, it was a message about who belonged, who mattered, and who did not. After the Civil War, America entered a period called Reconstruction. For the first time, Black Americans voted, held office, and shaped public policy. The Constitution was transformed. Slavery was abolished. Citizenship was expanded. Voting rights were protected. To formerly enslaved people, Reconstruction represented hope. To white Southern elites, it represented danger. A social order built on racial hierarchy was being challenged, and they intended to stop it. Resistance to black equality was immediate and organized. White political leaders called themselves redeemers, claiming they were saving the South. In reality, they were restoring white dominance. Through intimidation, propaganda, and violence, they dismantled Reconstruction. When federal troops withdrew in 1877, black political protection disappeared overnight. The groundwork was laid for a new system, one that would control black lives without slavery. Beginning in the late 19th century, Southern states passed laws enforcing racial separation. These laws governed schools, transportation, housing, healthcare, and public space. Segregation was no longer custom, it was mandatory. Jim Crow turned racism into policy and prejudice into governance. It was not chaos, it was carefully designed. In 1896, the Supreme Court ruled in Plessy v. Ferguson that segregation was constitutional, as long as facilities were separate but equal. But equality was never the goal. Black schools were underfunded, hospitals were inferior, public services were absent altogether. Jim Crow was not about separation, it was about subordination. Jim Crow dictated how people lived, moved, and interacted. It controlled where you sat, where you ate, where you learned, and where you could exist. Everyday life became a reminder of status, not through chains, but through signs, silence, and fear. Political power was stripped away using poll taxes, literacy tests, and legal loopholes. Economic control followed. Jim Crow ensured cheap labor and limited opportunity. Poverty was not accidental, it was enforced. Resistance existed from the beginning. Through churches, schools, businesses, and legal challenges, African Americans pushed back. In 1909, the NAACP was founded to fight Jim Crow in court. The battle would be long but strategic. America fought fascism abroad while tolerating segregation at home. The contradiction became impossible to ignore. Black veterans returned demanding the rights they were promised. Change was no longer theoretical, it was demanded. In 1954, Brown v. Board of Education struck down school segregation. The civil rights movement forced the nation to confront itself. In 1964 and 1965, landmark laws dismantled Jim Crow. By law, the system was over. By reality, the story was unfinished. To understand Jim Crow is not to dwell on the past, it is to understand the present and to recognize how systems of control are built, justified, and challenged.